My boyfriend laughed. "I've been rating you 310 in our group chat for months." I said, "Thanks for telling me." Then I posted our breakup with screenshots. His friends were messaging me their apologies within minutes. I, Alexandra, 38, was having dinner with my boyfriend Brian, 35, last Friday when my world completely shifted. We'd been together for 18 months, and I genuinely thought this was it. The relationship that would lead to marriage, blending our lives, maybe giving my 12-year-old daughter, Sophie, the stable stepfather figure she deserved. Brian had left his phone on the kitchen counter when he went to grab wine from the garage. It buzzed with a group text, and I glanced over innocently. What I saw made my stomach drop. "Coach Brooks, updated the list yet? New girl from Tinder is definitely an 8. Brian, still keeping Alexandra at 3. She's successful but exhausting, makes me feel small." My hands were shaking as I scrolled up. There it was, a full rating system they'd developed over months. 5 categories. Income intimidation factor, 1 to 5, where 5 meant too independent. Physical maintenance, 1 to 5, gym frequency and appearance effort. Wife material potential, 1 to 5, nurturing versus career focus. Social compatibility, 1 to 5, how well she fit with their friend group. And something called ego management required, 1 to 5, how much emotional labor she demanded. According to Brian and his teacher buddies, I scored income, 2 on 5, makes more than me, always picking up checks. Physical, 3 on 5, needs more gym time, dresses too corporate. Wife material, 2 on 5, career obsessed, barely cooks. Social, 4 per 5, good at events but intimidating to other girlfriends. Ego management, 1 per 5, constant need for validation about divorce stuff. The worst part? They'd been sharing screenshots of our private conversations, including the one where I opened up about my anxiety after my divorce, worried I was damaged goods at 36. Brian's comment on that screenshot, "Classic divorced mom baggage. At least she pays for most dates, LOL." I found another thread where they rated other women in their lives. Sophie's 4th grade teacher got a 6. The new substitute Lindsay got a 9, with notes about her flexibility and youth. Even the principal, Dr. Williams, was rated a 4, with the note would be higher but too much power. When Brian came back with the wine, I was still staring at his phone, my entire worldview crumbling. "Find something interesting?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. His face went white when he saw what was on the screen. "Alex, I can explain." "Please do. Explain how I've been a 3 out of 10 for 18 months while you've been planning our future together in my head." "It's just guy talk. It doesn't mean anything. You know how men are when they get together." "For 18 months, Brian, you've been rating me like a restaurant on Yelp while I've been planning how to introduce you to my extended family at Christmas." He tried to grab his phone, but I stepped back. "You're being dramatic. All guys do this stuff. It's harmless." "Do they also share private conversations about their girlfriend's divorce trauma? Because I saw that too. Classic divorced mom baggage. That's how you described my vulnerability to your friends." The color drained from his face completely. I was just venting. You know how hard it is sometimes, dating someone with so much history." I stood up, surprisingly steady despite feeling like the floor had dropped out beneath me. "I think you should leave." "Alex, come on. You're overreacting. It's not like I meant it maliciously." "Which part didn't you mean? The part where I'm exhausting? Or the part where my career success makes you feel small? Or the part where you think I need more gym time?" He grabbed his jacket, clearly frustrated. "Fine. You want to blow this up over stupid guy talk? Good luck finding someone who'll put up with your intensity at your age." There it was, the real Brian. After he left, I sat in my kitchen for 2 hours, wine untouched, staring at the screenshots I'd taken of his phone. The rating system wasn't just cruel, it was methodical. They had spreadsheets, color coding. They'd been treating women like fantasy football players, and I'd been last place on Brian's roster for over a year. The worst realization? I'd been so grateful someone wanted me after my divorce. I'd been walking on eggshells, trying to be the perfect girlfriend, worried I was too damaged, too old, too complicated. And the whole time, Brian had been keeping score, finding me lacking in every category that mattered to him. I thought about Sophie, asleep upstairs, trusting me to make good decisions about who we let into our lives. I thought about all the times I'd apologized for working late, for having opinions about money, for not cooking enough homemade meals. I'd been shrinking myself to fit into Brian's idea of what I should be, and apparently, I still wasn't small enough. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the substitute teacher Lindsay, 24, probably fresh out of college, rating a 9 while I was stuck at 3. I thought about how Brian always seemed annoyed when I talked about my promotion opportunities, how he'd make jokes about me wearing the pants when I'd suggest restaurants or activities. I'd thought he was just old-fashioned. Now I understood he was actively resentful. Saturday morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to hide this. I wasn't going to protect Brian's reputation while he'd been destroying mine behind my back for months. I wasn't going to teach my daughter that accepting disrespect was the price of being loved. I opened Facebook and wrote a simple post. Single again. After 18 months, discovered I was rated 3/10 in my ex's group chat with his colleagues. For the record, I rate being respected 10/10. I tagged Brian and hit post. My phone started buzzing immediately. Within an hour, I had 73 reactions and 45 comments. My network of working moms, divorced friends, and professional colleagues were responding faster than I'd ever seen. Melissa Taylor, my best friend and fellow divorced mom. What? Call me right now. Rachel Stone, my coworker. Girl, Kevin Brooks's wife just showed me screenshots. You need to see what else these men have been saying. My neighbor Jenny. Wait, wasn't he the one who said you were too independent for your own good at the block party? This explains everything. Even my ex-husband's new wife commented, "This is disgusting behavior. You deserve so much better, Alex." But the comment that hit hardest came from Sophie's friend's mom. Is this why Mr. Matthews was asking weird personal questions about you at the school carnival? This makes so much sense now. That's when I realized this wasn't just about me. By Sunday evening, my simple Facebook post had created a wildfire I never expected. Rachel forwarded me screenshots from Kevin Brooks's wife showing the full extent of their rating system. This wasn't just casual locker room talk, it was a sophisticated operation that had been running for over 2 years. They had rated every woman in their professional and personal circles. Sophie's teachers, colleagues' wives, parents at school events, even women they'd encountered briefly at conferences or social gatherings. The spreadsheet Rachel showed me had over 200 entries, complete with photos they'd screenshotted from social media, detailed notes about perceived flaws, and rankings that reduced grown women to numbers. But here's where it got truly sickening. They were rating students' mothers during parent-teacher conferences. Comments like, "MILF potential but talks too much about Johnny's grades," and "hot mom but helicopter parent energy" filled the margins of what should have been professional interactions about children's education. I felt physically ill reading through their messages. While Brian had been rating me a consistent 3, he'd been steadily upgrading Lindsay, the substitute teacher, from a 7 when she started to a 9 after what he called getting to know her better during after-hours classroom setup. The timeline perfectly matched his increased work obligations over the past 3 months. The most damaging discovery came from scrolling back through their chat history. Brian had been sharing intimate details about our relationship that I'd never consented to having public. My anxiety medication, my therapy sessions after the divorce, my insecurities about dating at 38, even details about our physical relationship that made me want to disappear into the floor. One particularly cruel exchange happened after I'd opened up about feeling scared to trust again after my divorce. Brian had screenshotted my vulnerable text and shared it with the caption, "The baggage is real with this one. Good thing she makes decent money, LOL." Monday morning brought the consequence I hadn't anticipated. Principal Dr. Williams called me at 8:15 a.m. Ms. Winters, I saw your Facebook post over the weekend. Could you please come in to discuss this matter? I'm very concerned about what this implies regarding my staff's professional conduct. Within 2 hours, I was sitting in Dr. Williams's office with printouts of the screenshots Rachel had provided. Her face grew more horrified with each page. "This is absolutely unacceptable behavior from my teachers," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Rating parents during conferences, sharing private information about families, this is a massive violation of professional ethics and potentially legal boundaries. I just wanted you to know," I told her. "Sophie is in this school system, and other parents deserve to understand what's been happening. You did the right thing bringing this forward. I want you to know that we take this extremely seriously." By Tuesday morning, Brian was on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Kevin Brooks was called in for questioning. 2 other teachers mentioned in the screenshots were suspended immediately. The school district moved fast because, as Dr. Williams explained to me in a follow-up call, this wasn't their first complaint about inappropriate behavior from male staff members. Apparently, several parents had reported feeling uncomfortable during conferences with certain teachers, but hadn't been able to articulate exactly why. The rating system explained everything. Wednesday evening, Brian showed up at my house looking desperate and disheveled. I watched him through the peephole for a full minute before deciding to open the door. "Alexandra, please. I'm probably going to lose my job. Can you take down the post? Can you talk to Dr. Williams and tell her it was all a misunderstanding?" "No. I was just trying to fit in with the guys. You know how men are when they're together. It didn't mean anything." "Actually, Brian, I'm learning how you are. Real men don't rate women like livestock. Real men don't share their girlfriend's private medical information for laughs." "I didn't mean the things I said. You know I care about you. We had good times together. You called my anxiety medication crazy pills to your friends. You shared screenshots of me crying about my divorce recovery and called it divorced mom baggage. Which part of that showed you cared? I was insecure, okay? You make good money, you have your life together, you're confident. It made me feel like less of a man sometimes." There it was, the truth I'd been trying to avoid seeing for months. "Brian, instead of working on yourself or communicating with me, you decided to tear me down to your friends. You turned my vulnerabilities into entertainment and my successes into threats. That's not insecurity. That's cruelty. What do you want me to do? Grovel? I said I'm sorry. I'm in therapy now. I'm trying to change. I want you to leave my property and never contact me or my daughter again. And if you're smart, you'll figure out why you need to diminish women to feel good about yourself before you destroy someone else." He stood on my porch for a moment, looking genuinely confused. "You'll never find someone who accepts you at your age with all your complications. You're almost 40, divorced, with a kid. You think men are lining up for that package?" I actually laughed. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely amused instead of hurt by his words. "Brian, I've had 3 coffee dates this week. Turns out plenty of mature men appreciate a financially stable, emotionally aware woman who knows her worth. Men who don't need to rate women to feel important." His face went through several expressions: surprise, disbelief, and finally, anger. "Those guys are just trying to get in your pants. No one's going to want to deal with your drama long term. You know what the difference is between those men and you? They asked about my career with genuine interest. They complimented my independence. They didn't make me feel like my success was something to apologize for." "Whatever," he muttered, walking toward his car. "Good luck with your feminist fantasy. Reality's going to hit you hard." I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling lighter than I had in months. For 18 months, I'd been grateful that someone chose me. I'd been walking on eggshells, trying to be less successful, less opinionated, less myself to keep Brian comfortable. Learning that he'd been actively resenting me the entire time was devastating, but it was also liberating. That night, Sophie found me in the kitchen, making her school lunch for Thursday. "Mom, why was Mr. Matthews here? He looked really upset." It was time for a conversation I'd been dreading but knew was necessary. "Honey, sit down. We need to talk about something important." Sophie settled into the kitchen chair across from me, her 12-year-old face serious. She'd always been perceptive, and I could see she'd been picking up on the tension around Brian's sudden absence from our lives. "You know how sometimes adults make mistakes in relationships?" I began carefully. "Well, I found out that Brian wasn't treating me with the respect that people should have in relationships." "What kind of respect?" she asked, her voice smaller than usual. I took a deep breath. He was saying mean things about me to his friends and making fun of things that were private between us. It made me realize that I deserve better, and so do you. We both deserve people in our lives who treat us with kindness and respect. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. "Like how Dad used to yell at you before the divorce?" My heart clenched. "Sort of, but different. This was more like making fun of me behind my back, instead of talking to me directly about problems. Both are wrong, but they hurt in different ways." "I'm glad you're not with him anymore," she said firmly. "He always seemed fake nice to me anyway." That conversation became the foundation for many discussions over the following months about self-respect, boundaries, and what healthy relationships should look like. Sophie's emotional intelligence amazed me as she processed the situation and asked thoughtful questions about how to recognize when people are being genuine. The aftermath continued to unfold over the following weeks. Brian lost his job after the district's investigation revealed a pattern of inappropriate conduct. They found evidence of him using school email to coordinate the rating system, making inappropriate comments about parents during faculty meetings, and, most damaging, sending suggestive messages to Lindsay during school hours. Lindsay, who was 24 and had been terrified to speak up, finally pressed harassment charges. She'd kept screenshots of Brian's messages, including ones where he'd compared her favorably to older, more complicated women, clearly referring to me. Her courage in coming forward led to 2 other young teachers sharing similar experiences. Kevin Brooks faced a different fate. His wife filed for divorce after discovering the rating system was just the latest in a pattern of disrespectful behavior toward women. He was transferred to a different school district, essentially demoted, and lost custody of his kids during the divorce proceedings when the judge saw evidence of him rating other parents and teachers. But the most unexpected development was how the story resonated beyond our immediate community. A local mom blogger, Jessica Chen, reached out asking to interview me about dating after divorce and workplace respect. Her article, "The 310 Woman: How One Mom's Story Exposed Toxic Male Rating Culture," was shared over 15,000 times. The response was overwhelming. Women started reaching out with their own stories of discovered rating systems, group chats full of cruel commentary, and the psychological damage of learning they'd been reduced to numbers by men they trusted. I realized this wasn't an isolated incident. It was a widespread pattern that most women had experienced in some form. 3 months after the initial incident, I was invited to speak at a women's professional networking group about maintaining confidence in toxic environments. Standing in front of 50 successful women sharing my story felt surreal but empowering. "I spent 18 months apologizing for my success," I told them. "Apologizing for making good money, for having opinions, for taking up space in the world. I thought that's what I had to do to be lovable after divorce. I was wrong." After my talk, a woman named Patricia approached me. She was starting a support group for divorced women navigating the dating world with confidence and boundaries. "We're calling it the Phoenix Circle," she said. "Women rising from the ashes of failed relationships, stronger and wiser." I joined immediately. Meeting monthly with 8 other women who understood the unique challenges of dating after divorce became one of the most healing parts of my recovery. We shared stories, celebrated small victories, and held each other accountable for maintaining our standards. 6 months after the Brian incident, my life looked completely different. I got the promotion I'd been working toward at the marketing firm, finally feeling confident enough to advocate for myself without worrying about appearing too ambitious. My success felt like mine again, not something to apologize for. I started dating again, but with completely different energy. First dates now included clear conversations about respect, communication styles, and expectations. If a man seemed uncomfortable with my career success or my confidence, I knew immediately he wasn't right for me. That's how I met Michael Rodriguez, a financial advisor and divorced dad of 2 kids. We met at Sophie's school science fair. His daughter Emma was in her class. What struck me immediately was how he talked about his ex-wife with respect, even though their marriage hadn't worked out. Co-parenting isn't always easy, he told me over coffee on our first date, but we both love our kids more than we dislike each other. It's about being adults. The contrast with Brian was stark. Michael asked thoughtful questions about my work and seemed genuinely impressed by my career trajectory. When I mentioned my recent promotion, he lit up with enthusiasm instead of making deflating comments about successful women. "That's amazing," he said. "Emma's been asking me about different career paths for women. I'd love for her to see what's possible." We took things slowly, both understanding the importance of protecting our children while building something real. Sophie adored him because he treated her with genuine respect, asking her opinions about things and remembering details from their conversations. Emma and Sophie became fast friends, bonding over their shared experience of having divorced parents who were figuring out dating. 8 months after my Facebook post, I was in a completely different place emotionally. The Phoenix Circle had become a central part of my social life. My relationship with Michael was healthy and respectful. Sophie was thriving, having learned valuable lessons about self-worth that I hoped would serve her throughout her life. Brian tried to reach out one final time through a mutual friend, apparently wanting to make amends as part of his therapy process. I declined politely but firmly. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. Last I heard, he was working at a private tutoring center, making half his previous salary, and dating a 22-year-old college student he'd met on a dating app. Some people never learn, but I learned everything I needed to know. I am not too much. I am not intimidating. I am not damaged goods because I've been divorced. I'm a successful professional, a loving mother, and a woman who deserves genuine respect and authentic love. To anyone reading this who's been made to feel like their strength is a weakness, you are not the problem. Don't shrink yourself to fit someone else's insecurity. Thanks for following this journey. I'm off to live my magnificent, unrated life.